Do you ever feel like your job title doesn't do justice for all that you do? I think that's how most of us feel, which is why I'm so glad you are here today. Hi, I'm Monica King, and welcome to Curious Monica, where I study how we thrive at different jobs.
Yes, yeah. So I'm happy to talk about that because I do want to demystify some of that.
College was hard for me as a first generation college student. I didn't know what I was doing. Even when you have a job, even when you have clients, even when you have these different responsibilities, sometimes people, when they see you, they see different things.
There are things that go above misconception by integrating it into our values. Like we learn by doing, everybody is included through participation, and all these other things that are part of our evolving understanding of our community.
There's these little nuances that only someone who's just intimate with the process understands. Because life is ever changing and trends are ever changing, you're really never going to become a master at something. I think the best that you can probably do is just be a passionate learner.
One thing you'll know very quickly about me is that I'm always curious. I'm curious why we live and work the way we do, and I wonder how things might be different. Indeed, curiosity is what led me to building Innovators Box, a global creative leadership firm, from having worked previously in nuclear weapon security at the United States government. And curiosity is why I started this podcast, highlighting stories of friends at different jobs. Why? Because at Innovators Box, as I facilitated companies' culture and leadership development all around the world, I realized no matter what age or background someone is from, I always found this one to be true. We all want to be understood and appreciated better. It's not that people don't get us. It's just that most people wouldn't really fully know what you do and why you do, and how much care and thought you put in what you do. I certainly understand that sentiment as I put together tons of programs and sessions, and most people wouldn't know how much time I put in the minute breakdowns and the thought of the full journey I think about. And this seems to happen all the time because most of us don't actually have the opportunity to learn about other people's jobs. I mean, take a moment to look at your office. List 3 jobs someone has in your organization. Do you know what they do, why they do, and what drives them? Most likely, no. Most of us are so busy living our day-to-day lives that we, quote, don't have time to learn about those details. But what if we did? What if we understood a bit more what motivated my friends in finance? What if I understood a bit more what drove my colleagues to work past midnight but not excited for a morning meeting? I'm glad you're here because I hope through each week's episode, you open your perspectives to know what you think and know of any job. Maybe you'll get new ideas for how you might want to thrive in your own work or support your colleagues. But most importantly, always be curious to know that every role has a purpose and impact. And just because you don't see it doesn't mean that person's work is not valuable. Today, I'm excited to untangle a role that I think we've severely underestimated. A role most companies would have, but don't consider having someone full-time until way later. HR and people operation. I asked 4 friends what they wish others understood about HR better.
What are some of the perceptions and misunderstanding people have about the role of HR that you wish others understood better?
Because of certain reputation that HR professional might have had over the years of being, overly compliance oriented or being the police of the organization, right? HR always say no. That needs to change. I think human resources, or we call ourselves in our company, we're the people services team, to deliberately, intentionally get away from what, typical HR kind of that term could invoke in people's minds.
My first friend is Mimi Wang, head of people service at Gosh Enterprise, a rapidly growing company that oversees global fast food chains like Charlie's, Bibi Bop Asian Grill, Lenny's Grill and Subs, and educational nonprofits like Charlie's Kids. Prior to Gosh Enterprises, Mimi has worked at Panda Restaurant Group, known for Panda Express, for a decade, so she certainly knows a thing or two about people operations, especially when it comes to the restaurant industry.
HR or people services professional can be awesome business partners to actually help to drive business results and to be very close to the core strategy of an organization. So they're not just administrative professionals that are there, waving the flag. No, they are key problem solvers. And if engaged effectively, could help organizations unlock a lot of potentials.
Being an awesome business partner. She isn't the only one who said this.
I think the field of HR has been changing and evolving rapidly over the past, couple of years, if not decade anyways, but 2020 has massively accelerated that. If business leaders in the past have not recognized intrinsically the value of really smart, strategic, capable business operators who are able to align company objectives to talent strategy, like if you have been looking at HR professionals as compliance and benefit people, 2020 changed that for you, because all of a sudden you needed counsel, you needed advice, you needed guidance, you needed someone to not only think about the physical manifestation of your office, but then the mental health and emotional toll and burnout that your employees are going through. And then also you needed help and guidance, like understanding how your company should respond to some of the biggest issues of our day. All of that on top of attracting, scaling, developing, and retaining top talent, all of which is the backbone of whether your company is going to be successful or not.
That's Claire Kennedy, Vice President, People Operations at Axios, a fast-growing media company that delivers smart revenue news. Claire has been one of the first employees brought on to build the HR team at Axios in 2016, a company that now has 200-plus employees. And building an inclusive workplace at a fast-growing media company is something she loves doing. She's done so already at Politico, a global leading political news, in Virginia as well. And just as Mimi said, Claire speaks about how HR is truly a business partnership. And for companies who are looking to build a team, it is crucial that you find the right HR partner from the very beginning. It could really make or break your company's growth.
It's an incredibly varied skill set. Again, to your point, like your question was, what would you say to people that don't see that? I guess my punchline is see the value in HR, put your money where your mouth is. You need to have a well-resourced HR team in place from the beginning, or it's going to be very hard to build and structure and scale a successful company, just period. The premium on the employee experience has never been higher. People expect to have a good experience working for you. And much like you were saying a moment ago, Monica, with people, deciding where to spend their money, what products to buy. Similarly, people are applying that same lens to where they want to work, what brand they want to buy into, who they want to be associated with, what that company stands for. And every company has to draw their own lines there. So you need smart partners navigating that. You need people that really know your people and understand your company. And again, you need that kind of multifaceted skill set in an HR professional. So stop undervaluing HR, stop under-resourcing your team and expect, a beautiful, well-run, managed organization to come out of it. HR should really be one of the first things you invest in as an organization.
Wait, so what skills are important to thrive? Would you have to be good at talking with people and around people all the time? I mean, the role does have the word people in it.
So those are not as important. I will start that first. And HR people don't always fit that particular mold. And I would say what I see as most important for an HR professional or HR leader, first of all, empathy is key.
Empathy. Got it. What else? I asked my friend Elise Numerio, Chief People Officer at EverQuote, making insurance finding easy and transparent, and someone who has been in HR and also leading her team as the executive.
First and foremost, you want someone who understands the business and dives deeply into understanding the business, someone who embraces that side of the job. I have a pretty high bar for anyone on my team. You have to have certain quantitative and analytical chops.
Wait, analytics? Why?
Because you need to talk the same talk as the business. You need to be as data driven as we ask our analysts and engineers to be. I actually often say to my team, if we don't understand what our stakeholders do, then we don't understand what we do.
Whoa, so then does that mean great HR leaders truly need to have a lens into all the different roles?
Another key really is that deep understanding and that deep curiosity to really understand how business run and what's truly important in an organization. That deep connection with the actual business function.
That's Mimi Wang again, and as you heard, HR really is not just about having high EQ and people-driven insights, but really also being business-driven. This is probably why when I asked Claire what helped her be a better HR leader, this is what she shared.
Almost at every part of my professional journey, the skills that I learned in my very first job have been wildly applicable. Again, really and it was an entry-level sales position, right? When you start. So it's very much understanding what your product is, understanding who your audience is, and the skills that I just outlined, like an aggressive attention to detail, time management, communication, being able to talk to different people and then influence their decisions. That translates to everything you do in the business world, whether it's as an engineer who is building something, but then needs to, influence the actual product decisions, or someone in sales or, a more operational role where you're basically trying to get a bunch of different people with a bunch of different ideas moving in the right direction. So for me, when you say like it was their specific moment, a huge defining moment in my career was when I actually made the shift from sales and business development into recruiting. Because that exact moment where you actually are jumping departments or jumping teams in a more formal way can be the single transitional phase of a career that is hardest to figure out how to do. And so it really was that moment where I really jumped into recruiting and became a talent professional and shifted gears was really the most important one. And they took a chance on me because I had come from sales and business development.
So business is important. What if you started a career in a completely different field, like engineering?
I never thought that I was going to be doing HR. I didn't even know what HR was about. The first part of my professional tenure, I was working in telecommunications. And in my journey as an electronic engineer, I worked in very technical stuff. Then I became a technical salesperson. And I found out that I loved working with people, for people, together with people. That sort of sparked a new thing in me. Just doing the technical work was not enough anymore, that I wanted something else. But I didn't want to be a salesperson. I mean, nothing against sales, but that's not what I found more energizing. So I said to myself, well, is there any other field where I can work with, for people? And I discovered HR.
Now, isn't that amazing? You can truly walk into HR from all walks of lives. That's Enrique Rubio, founder of Hacking HR, a global learning community of HR and business leaders. He's an active community builder, bringing diverse HR professionals around the world through regular events and programming. He isn't the only one who says coming from a different background helps. Elise, Chief People Officer from Evernote that we just had earlier, shares how having a diverse interest actually helped her play a better role in HR.
Towards the end of business school, I decided to recruit for consulting because that felt like a really great way to kick the can down the road and not make a decision about what I wanted to be when I grew up. Did that for a couple of years, realized that was not for me. So I went onto the internal side of consulting and did change management. And through that, I discovered that what I really loved, my favorite days of being a consultant, were days where we were advising clients on organizational design, change management. How are people going to react to that? How are people going to think about this new way of doing things? I cared about that much more than the actual new way of doing things.
This is really humbling because often when we start our career, I feel like we are pressured to figure out everything to be successful. What they share is that it's okay to not know, as long as you continue to stay curious.
For this particular field, there are just so many different entry points. But the key is to be close to the core of business, to to always be interested in what makes business better from a people perspective. So keep thinking, asking yourself questions and find leaders in human resources within your organization, and then go and start a mentorship and talk to that person. That's also a very good place to start. So if you're intentional, there's just unlimited possibilities, I think, to be part of this field.
That's really exciting. And I feel that with COVID, the role of HR has probably only expanded, seeing how central it is and how we nurture and develop people during a crisis with increased demands and mental well-being. I mean, what other changes are you excited to see happening?
So there are probably two things I wanted to emphasize. One is in the area of people data. Not my strength, but something I'm so curious about is how do we use data? First of all, what kind of data are meaningful, and how do we use data to tell stories and then to drive strategy? Second thing I would say, we are more and more talking about how do we engage the whole person, right? Not just your skills and your talent, but who you are as a person. What can you contribute other than what you can do? So it's learning and development, not just in the developing specific skill set type of role, but kind of your personhood. And I really think the more people bring their whole self to work, the better off the company becomes.
That's Mimi Wang again. And wow, that is an exciting future to walk into. Having someone in the office who will truly be devoted to thinking about how we can all show up as our whole selves. And that led by data? Has the pandemic brought more changes?
Everything. The world had already been shifting towards a more remote-minded approach, but this has just accelerated everything that we were kind of onto in 2019. So we're going to, I think with more intention, be able to hire and find talent wherever they are, right? That's one thing. And I think the future of working in an office is going to look very different. I think there's going to be an emphasis on collaboration and co-working space. I think people are going to have a massive amount of flexibility. I don't see any organization able to come out of this and say, okay, now we need to revert back to the way we did things. It's just not going to be the case.
That's Claire Kennedy from Axios again, and she's right. Just as how we work changed, how our people leaders help people will change. And now the key is, what are you doing in response to these changing times? Leading the change or reacting to be changed? The nuance matters. I asked Enrique Rubio from Hacking HR again what worries him as someone who is constantly hearing the patterns from HR leaders around the world.
Mental health and diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging is the urgent thing to do, but not just for today, but for the long term. So to me, what I tell HR people is, I know everybody's busy. I know you're recruiting, you're paying, you're firing, you're hiring, you're doing all these things, but do not miss sight of how important what we do for the health, the sustainability, the impact, the profitability of our organizations and the success of our people. The future of work is being created. The question is, are we part of it? Are we in the design? Are we being protagonists in that process? Or are we going to be subjected to whatever somebody else is designing for us?
Wow, that statement is a powerful truth. We have to all chew a bit more for all industries. I mean, how actively are you being the protagonist in designing the change you want to see, or following the rules that someone else created? This is a powerful reminder. I don't know how many times I tell people why delaying culture, leadership, and team development can be detrimental to their company's health. If they haven't realized it before, well, this past COVID year has been certainly a time they're seeing the consequences. Yes, we are all busy doing a lot of things, but if we are simply being busy repeating what we've done before and not taking the time to ask what we can do differently in the future, we're not actually taking the time to explore how we can do things differently. How is it even possible to reimagine a future when we're just repeating what we've done before?
That's what probably worries me the most, that struggle between day-to-day, urgent, very often non-important things versus important, long-term, very impactful things.
So what are you reimagining for the future of HR today?
One thing that I'm excited about is that a lot of the things that we did last year were very reactive, but still, even being reactive, we were able to change and evolve and transform the way we were doing things pretty quickly. So what excites me about this is that now we have a little bit of extra leverage, right? Now we can tell our leaders, look at all I did in a crisis situation. Give me a little bit of extra room to do more. Give me a little bit of more resources. Give me more authority. Empower me more. Because if I was able to do these things in a crisis, imagine all I could do if I had the opportunity to think better and to take more time to think about those things.
The opportunity to transform HR. Yes. And how can HR and people operation leaders continue to take care of themselves and not get burned out in this process? If one thing is coming up clearly for me, as I learned about each of their journeys, is just how much of a super person you have to be to thrive in HR. I mean, you have to empathize, understand business, learn data, relate to one another. How do you make time to take care of yourself? Elise, share me your thoughts.
I think the first step is acknowledging that this job is very emotionally draining. You could look back on a week and you're like, my goodness, I didn't get anything done. Like there's nothing that's checked off my list. And that would be, very demotivating if you don't also acknowledge, but what I did do is I talked 3 managers through challenging performance issues. I talked 2 employees about, challenging personal issues. I helped navigate an interpersonal conflict between 2 members of the leadership team. That is real work, and that takes a toll.
That is a lot of emotional weight indeed. And how do you take care of yourself then?
There's kind of 2 things that I try to encourage with my team and practice for myself. One is take regular time off and truly unplug. And that's not once a year I take a week off. I really try to do at least a day off a month to try to just, clear my mind and try to preserve weekends as well. It's something that's very important, a big part of our culture too. The other piece is expressing gratitude. I am a really big believer in the power of explicitly, publicly expressing gratitude and acknowledging the things that you are thankful that someone has done, even if it's a small thing, because I think that helps to shed light on some of the work that drains us, that doesn't usually get acknowledged. And so at the end of every week, I do Friday gratitude to my team. It's my favorite part of the week. That refills my cup. That is how I get energy, is thinking about, wow, this team did some incredible stuff this week. I am so grateful to work with such incredible human beings. This is how I end my week on a high note every single week, because I spent an hour thinking through all of the incredible things that the team did.
I love that, Elise. It's simple and so thoughtful and empowering, both for the team and for the leader. I mean, taking a moment to block off time to unplug and also to practice gratitude. How often do we truly express gratitude? We probably do that just writing a thank you in our signature email, but what else? What about optimism? I asked Claire, who despite all this crazy workload and changes, how she finds inspiration to be optimistic.
I find myself as a naturally optimistic person. We have the opportunity to break down and completely reimagine and rethink how we do work, how we live our lives. And in a lot of categories, I think that's going to ultimately be a good thing. As a woman who wants to have a career, let's just take that one example, right, of the way society is stacked right now and the way that work and, corporate America has always approached that topic has just been almost a complete failure. I mean, you're really only now starting to see companies understand the wants and needs of half of their workforce. And so when it comes to what the future looks like with flexibility and working from home, and even kind of the stigma you see being completely thrown out the window when a child runs behind a Zoom meeting, so many of those resets, I think, are going to be incredibly powerful for different segments of our population. And again, we have an opportunity to reimagine everything right now.
Yes, we do. And again, this path won't be easy. As Mimi shares, there are skills to constantly hone.
The idea of operating range where you're able to zoom in on a specific tactical issue, but then zoom out and to see the trees as well as the forest. In my previous role, it was probably more tactical than strategic. Now my current role calls for a lot more strategic agility. So I found myself in the past almost 2 years now in the role to continuously push myself to say, hey, you're just focusing on the tree. Don't forget the big picture. Don't forget the big picture. Don't forget the big picture. And as someone who wants to do things well, or sometimes have a perfectionistic tendency, I kept telling myself this. I asked myself this question, is this good enough to move on? There are things that needs to be done really, really well. There are other things that simply needs to be done. That's it, right? So to be able to discern what needs to be done well and what needs to be done, that's the first thing that I'm continuing to improve.
Sounds familiar, right? Being able to be both strategic and see the details. Enrique shares more why that's so important for HR.
The one area of expertise that touches everything that happens in the world and in an organization is HR. We look at financial success, organizational longevity and sustainability and profitability. We look at people's success. We look at the technology processes that are happening in the organization. So we should be looking at all of these pieces. So our role is just incredibly important.
Yes, and not only is it important, we're going to need a lot more good talent in this growing role and wanting to learn how to adapt to change better. And hey, if you're by chance looking into doing HR at a startup, be ready for more change and agility.
For young professionals thinking about joining a startup?
Startup as an HR professional.
I mean, for any professional joining a startup, it's throw out your expectations. Everything changes so frequently. The only constant is change in a startup. So if you enter an organization and you're given a project or you're in a position or you're on a team that isn't everything you hoped and dreamed for, that's okay, because everything is about to change. Like, that is the only thing that is constant at a startup. So if you enter an organization, do it in good faith. Keep your eyes open for opportunities coming to you. And whatever it is that you're doing, do it as best as you can, right? Like, that's the advice that you always hear people give, but it's true. If you enter a team and do really, really well at what you're brought on to do, you organically are going to be the person that people think of to give more responsibility or to take on a random project. And startups are just so crazy in the beginning, right? That if you're someone who's there, who's passionate, who's positive, who's hungry and has a great work ethic and can get things done, you're going to be able to apply that to a bunch of different stuff. And you're going to be able to go into an organization and navigate your way around it. And that's probably the number one reason you would want to join a startup, is because if you don't know exactly what you want to do, you're going to get so much exposure to so many different roles, people, skill sets, et cetera, at a startup. So I'm a huge fan of doing it at one point or another. I think it's an incredible learning experience. And yeah, my advice is to throw all of your expectations out the window and hang in there. Things change, opportunities open up. If it's not exactly what you hoped and dreamed for, hang in there for a second and really assess before you decide to bounce.
Yes, as a startup founder myself, I 100% agree. Your agility and mindset matters, which is why Enrique reminds us another truth about how he feels about the whole shift in people and HR roles since the pandemic.
It's like the old saying, you can bring the horse down to the river, but you can't force the horse to drink water, right? So what we're saying here is, we were brought to this river of change and transformation. Now we got to drink that water and make the change happen. So it's on us to take that action.
Yes, it's up to us to take this into action. And hey, isn't that a great thing? You have the power to design how you want your future to look, whether that's in people in HR roles or no matter what job that is. The key is that you never stop learning. So how will you take the action to learn? What will you choose to learn? And how will you continue to hone your craft as an expert? You get to choose and design, and I hope you don't ever let go of that protagonist narrative. This is Monica Kang at Curious Monica, and I hope you all enjoyed being curious with me. learning more about HR and people operations and how it is changing. Thank you, Elise, Claire, Mimi, and Enrique, again for speaking with me to share how you help others thrive and why you love what you do at HR and People Operations. Your work is appreciated across many, and I know many more will as they tune into this episode. Next, I will be asking my friends working in product development, marketing, and all that jazz. What does that mean and why do they love what they do? Find out more by joining us next week. See you there. Thank you for listening to Curious Monica by Innovators Box. I'm your host, Monica King. If you enjoyed today's show, I would love for you to subscribe and review. This is brought to you by my talented team, Servant O, our creative producer, Sam Lemmer and Ravi Ladd, our audio engineer, Akriti Pandey, our web designer, Monica Escobar, our graphic designer, Luke Helder on our music, Kelly Gravo, our intern, and the show directing and host by myself, Monica. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next week. Thank you.